it's Jennifer McCollum with the Parent Coach Club, and I am here today with the fabulous Leslie Josel. Hello, Leslie.
So fun to be here. Thanks for having me.
I am honored that you're here. So Leslie is here today to talk about her latest book, which is incredible. I can't say enough good things about it. I want to read it over and over and over again. And I really am so glad that I get an opportunity to chat with you about it and give others an opportunity to find out how they can get this book. So the book is called How to Do It Now Because It's Not Going Away.
Perfect title, right?
Yeah. Perfect title.
Right to the point. No messing around, like right to the point.
Yes. So I guess we're going to talk a lot about procrastination, but I want to just, Leslie, before I let you kind of tell us about you and your book, I want to just kind of read your bio, tell our audience who you are, because, and honestly, your bio doesn't even say enough about you because you are incredible. You've got this massive business worldwide, and I am just thrilled that you're here. So I'm going to try and do my best to articulate your greatness.
Okay? Oh, you're very sweet. Thank you.
So Leslie is an academic life coach for students and is an award-winning entrepreneur who founded Order Out of Chaos. Love that name. Who doesn't want order out of chaos, right?
Yes.
So Leslie started this business when her son was first diagnosed with ADHD, and Order Out of Chaos is a company whose mission is to help parents guide their students to success in learning and in life. It's beautiful. We all need that. Leslie is also the author of the book we're going to talk about today, How to Do It Now Because It's Not Going Away, the creator of the award-winning academic planners, which we have and use and are awesome. So that's a really great tool for time management for those that have students that struggle with their time management. And let me see, you're an internationally acclaimed speaker. Gosh, I could go on and on. You write. You've been named as one of the top time management experts in the world by Global Gurus 4 years in a row, which is incredible.
A little crazy, but thank you.
That's a little awesome, a lot awesome. And you speak to students and parents to help them utilize their resources to best navigate the task-driven world in which they live. And you, Leslie, continue to learn from your son from your audience, your huge audience, sharing your observations with readers in Attitude magazine and in her weekly column, Dear ADHD Family Coach. So you are everything ADHD, everything time management, everything to help us stop procrastinating. And I don't want to procrastinate anymore. I want you to do some talking, because definitely I could go on and on about your accolades. But Leslie, as the guru in procrastination, tell us about your book, first of all, who it's for, and then we're going to get to how we can all pick a copy up. But tell us who it's for.
Okay, so I'm going to take us back a little bit. So, yes, I love to talk about time because to me, and it starts with time for me. I love talking about time because I feel time has a personality all its own, but yet we can't see it. So it becomes the most dysfunctional member in your family. So that's how I look at it. But what I realized is, as I've been working with students for over 15 years, that the issue of procrastination, particularly how parents view their students, so that's what I want everybody to hold on to, is really filled with like emotion and confusion and frustration and a lot of this. But it's really parent driven to the student. And so as you know, I'm a learner, I'm a lifelong learner, and I'm dabbling and I'm looking, and there really isn't a lot out there on procrastination geared to the student. Tons for adults. You could read massive, massive books and articles and all of that. But what I noticed is there wasn't a book written not only for students, so this book is really for teens and college students. I want to be clear. We've had people ask us, is this good for my elementary school student? Absolutely not. I don't want, you know, but as the parent, you might glean a lot of information. But what I did is I didn't want it to just be my voice, because it gets old after a while, hearing just me. So I took 15 years of my students' stories and I put them in there, and the crazier the better. And what we're hearing is that people are going, the early reviewers, either I see my kid in there, I see my coaching client in there, but what it really does is it brings their story to life, and parents are saying, I see that now, I understand this better now, because you laid out what I'm seeing in my student, and now there's a name for it, or there's a why for it. And then I also provide along with it all the tips, all the tools, all the techniques, all the everything that we use to better help the student. So you might say it's a book written for students by students as well as me. I almost wish there was a way to make me the secondary author. Do you know what I mean by that?
Mm-hmm.
So that to me is the beauty of the book. And then I think the second thing that it's funny, it's like my third child and the one I raised, right? I kind of say. What I really love about it too is I take the whole procrastination gene and I break it down into what really is going on behind the scenes for your student. Because it could be time management, organization, study skills, distractions. And I broke the book down by 8 different, you might say, almost like pods or, you know, little categories that your child might fit into. Because what I really want everybody to take away from this book, and then I'm going to stop talking, is that this book is not about school skills. Will you find stuff about homework and study skills? Absolutely, because you can't talk students without it. But when we talk procrastination, it's really a life skill. It's really getting your child to, number one, figure out what's getting in their way, and number two, giving them the education and the resources that they need to be able to manage it. So that's really my takeaway is this is life skills, baby. This is not like, because if you've ever heard me speak, this is my party line. No one's gonna give a you-know-what, gonna keep it clean, what your kid got on his like Mesopotamia test in 9th grade. They aren't. But you need to hand a report in on time. You need to show up for work on time. You need to be able to plan your day, whether you're in school or not. And that's what this book is about.
Okay, so many takeaways there. But number one, when I was reading it, I want to just comment about that. I was connecting with a lot of the stories that the kids were telling, because, so I have 4 kids. I have a university student, a college student, and 2 grade 9 students who just started high school. And
so you are my wheelhouse.
I'm your ideal client, absolutely, because I could identify with a lot of the stories. And then I'm like, okay, well, you can read about stories and you can hear about other people that are going through the same thing, but now what? And you give us the now what, which is so cool. Like, for instance, it was just last week when my kids had, okay, it's like 2nd week of school for us, but they already had a project due. And it was due on the Monday. And so all through the first week, I'm like, okay, let's do a little bit each day. What are you going to do? I was doing it completely wrong. But it was finally Sunday night. And it wasn't, they were like, okay, now I'm going to start working on my project that was due the next morning. And I thought, gosh, if they had this book ahead of time and they did the chapter on time management and did the weekly time tracker.
The time tracker.
Oh my gosh, that would have been like life-changing for them. Yeah. So now we have it, which is great. Yes. But I wanted to comment about the value of having the stories in there, because I did see a connection with most of the stories and what my kids are going through right now. And the value, the added value that you give is not just, you're not alone, lots of other kids go through this. It's no, here's what you can do about it now. And then the second thing I wanted to comment about was that these skills, being life skills, are so incredibly valuable. And so now when our kids are young, I'm skipping ahead going, their whole life is, they're going to do this the rest of their life. And they're going to miss work and they're not going to show up for whatever it is they need to show up for in their entire life. You know how parents' brains work. We're like
Yes, I
way ahead
do.
in the future.
Yes, I do.
Worrying
That's
about,
why I wrote this book.
yeah, like you don't hand in this project and you have no hope whatsoever in being a successful adult. So
Right.
that's where we're going. And so now to have the tools to help give them these life skills now is so invaluable. I just want to tell you
I,
how awesome
I'm
it is.
thrilled. I'm so thrilled you feel that way. And I want to piggyback on something you said because this parents are going to be watching this. And what we've been getting is a lot of questions saying, okay, I understand that this book is written for students, but should I, as the parent, read it? And I'm like, it is required in my world, this should be required reading for every parent. Not because it's my book, but because it's a book about procrastination in your students.
Mhm.
And here's why. A few things. Number one, we as adults kind of understand our procrastination. And there's a lot written about it, even if you don't. So if you don't understand why you procrastinate, you can find out the reasons. But a lot of what is being saying about adult procrastination is that it's mood-based. It's not about a time management issue or even a skill-based issue, but it's about your self-regulation. Like, I'm not in the mood, or I don't feel like doing this. And I know we're all guilty of that. Trust me, I do. I say it to myself every day. But what I have noticed in students is why they procrastinate is somewhat different than adults. Because what we see in students is that a lot of their procrastination is skill-based. It's not that they don't want to, it's that they don't know how. And that is it might seem so simple, but that mindset is, to me, is so massive in your student. They might not know where they sit in time. They might not know how to study. They might not know how to plan. And if you don't know how to do something and don't even know how to ask to do it, it's not going to happen. So that's my biggest takeaway for parents is read the book, because you will absolutely, to your point, understand your student so much better. You'll understand the why, but you'll also understand tips and tools that really speak to how a child can manage their procrastination as opposed to an adult does. And that's, I think, my, I don't know, third takeaway? I don't even know. But you understand what I'm saying. I think that is so critical, because as parents, we're like, you need to do it this way. But this is how I do things. You need to do it this way. And that is absolutely not the case. You know, I speak a lot in this book about being what I call a functional procrastinator. A lot of students who show up and say, I can't do something like my parents do. I can't do something 2 weeks in advance. I'm okay doing something 2 days beforehand. I know about it. I'm okay about it. I do a good job on it. Get off my back. I'm sorry. I'm like now the student, and I'm on that page along with them. I actually go to that of allow your student to work their best practices. Let them try it that way until it doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
But you gotta let them do it first. Absolutely.
That's so hard, isn't it, to just allow them to make their mistakes, but to learn from them. And it is hard as a parent.
It is.
I loved how you distinguish what procrastination is for adults and for kids, and that it is quite different. I wonder if you can explain to us, because I really love this, the practice of the 2-minute rule. Can you talk to that?
Oh, you mean like doing something right away?
Yes. So talk to that, because, here's my brain. I'm like, okay, give me a tool right now. And I think this would be beneficial to our audience that's listening or watching right now. Just an example of some of the things in the book that you teach. Okay. So the practice of the 2-minute rule, what is the benefit of that if you have a procrastinator?
Yes. Well, so before we even do that, I want to preface it with that not all procrastination in your child looks the same. And that's also really important. So your child saying like, I'm not going to do it now, I'm going to do it later, does not necessarily make them a procrastinator. I just want to make this like abundantly clear. This has been like my thing, is that someone to truly procrastinate, to really truly procrastinate, there has to be a negative consequence on the other end. So think about it. You might say, okay, I'm going to go clean out my garage today, and you don't get to it. Is there a real consequence to that? Did anybody get hurt in the making of that? No. Did you procrastinate? I would say, no, you didn't. You just, it's okay. There was no real, right? There's no real effect that happens afterwards. So for true procrastination, there has to be like something negative that's going to happen to you, a true consequence. Like, I'm not going to hand in my homework tomorrow. That's a consequence. I'm not going to show up on time for work. That is it. And I just wanted to get that out. My 2-minute rule, and I find that my kids tend to, here's where I get buy-in, is the reason why I think it works for most students is that it's task oriented. And here's all of what we're talking about is brain-based behavior. It doesn't matter if your child has ADHD or not. This book, in fact, is not an ADHD book purposely, because all kids procrastinate. Doesn't matter if they have ADHD or not. So where I get this buy-in is everything that you're doing in those 2 minutes has to be task oriented. It has to be a quick do now, because that works for them. That's easier on the brain than I have to go study now, or I have to do the whole project now. So if there is something that you can do that's only going to take you 2 minutes, I tend to get buy-in that they'll do it. But here's the other reason why a 2-minute rule works. I always have my students working time over task. Task, when you say go do something, it leads to procrastination because your student doesn't know where they sit in that task. How long will it take? How much time do I have left till I have to move on to something else? When you put a time around something, it allows your child to see the beginning, the middle, and the end. And when they can see done, they're more apt to activate. That's the time management, Leslie. But that's why when I put a time parameter around things, my students tend to activate better than if I put a task parameter around it. Does that, I'm trying to explain it. Make sense?
It's totally clear. And I really wanted to ask about that because that's how I work as well. And I know it's different with kids and adults, but if I don't know how far we're going with something, it's very demotivating. Like I want to know what's the end? And so I love that 2-minute rule that you have. I want to ask.
I'm sorry. I wanted to add one thing. When in the book at the end, there's questions even for parents to ask their students to help them gain that motivation. And one of the questions is, do you know what done looks like? Because you need to see the end before you can begin. Now, imagine you are a successful adult and you just said this. Now think of a student whose brain function is a little bit, it's not fully developed 100%. How do you expect them to get to done?
Okay, if we ended this chat right then and there, that's the biggest takeaway for me. And I think that's going to transform the way that we talk about things, like go clean your room. Yeah, like this is why I get stares, like, or they go up and throw their laundry hampers in their closet and call that done.
That's what
not really clear.
What done looks like. Be right, super clear.
Yeah.
But that whole, everything to me, yes, skill-based. They need to learn how to study. They need to learn how to plan. But where you sit in time, if you remember, I know you were going to ask me, like, what's my my takeaway. It all comes back to time. It all comes back to conquering that time blindness. If your student has no idea where they sit in time, I want you to picture a ship completely unmoored, like in the middle of the ocean with no land in sight. That's them not understanding time. So anything you can do to externalize time, analog clocks, timers, calendars, or working time over task, that externalization allows your child to internalize time. It allows them to become more time aware, which we know directly affects procrastination, 100%.
Wow, this is going to transform our house. I'm going to come back and Leslie, we're going to have another chat someday, and I'm going to say like, wow, look at all the productivity here. our,
Right.
our kids are doing it and on their own. And so all of like you gave us so many great tips there. Um, but there's so much more in the book.
Yes.
And we could probably talk for hours, but I really think there's great value in just going and grabbing the book for all those that are watching and listening to this. Go grab the book. It is called How to Do It Now, because it's not going away. Oh, good, good, good. Flip through it. Like, it's huge. It's fabulous.
Well, it's also super. But the other thing I want to say is what I also wanted the book. This was something my publisher and I went crazy on. It's not dense. You know, that was the funny thing too. There's a lot of books on the market geared to students that even as an adult, I wouldn't read because they're too dense. So you'll see things are charted and sidebars, and there's apps for your kids because we're living in a digital world. There's tons of like tools that you can see. And then the one thing I do want to mention, because this is one of my favorite things, and I think it gives the book like a next level element, is I went out and I interviewed 100 of my students, right? And I'm going to give my son a shout out. He developed a questionnaire of literally 25 questions that like would be very kid specific and kid related. And we interviewed them and we asked them really personal questions like, you know, what's the best grade you ever got for the least amount of work you ever did? Or tell us the best thing your friends have ever done for you, like they came in clutch for you, like when you weren't prepared. Or, you know, what's the craziest place you do work? And 90% of my kids said the toilet. Like literally, like we went behind the scenes, and they're funny, but they're real. And again, it's another element for parents to get this front row seat or bird's eye view or whatever you want to say, or like, what do they say? Fly on the wall view of what's really happening with your kid. What is your kid not telling you? I'm telling you. But that's the other element. We're calling them classroom confessionals. And they're funny. I think they're funny because I work with this population. So I know it already, but you would be amazed at how many people the pre-reviewers have said, I would never like thought kids would have said these things. I'm like, yeah, this is what's going on in real time, in real life.
Yeah, you're going to have a whole generation of parents now allowing their kids to do homework on the toilet. So thank you.
My pleasure for all of you.
I do. That's a tip that you gave me quite a long time ago. Let your kids do the work where it works for them. And I mix it up. It doesn't always have to be at a desk, at the kitchen table, one spot. And I love that. Okay.
No, it shouldn't be.
So Leslie, thank you so much for being here, for giving us all these tips, for writing this book, for putting it out there in the world, because it is going to create change and give a lot of encouragement and motivation to families. So I want to leave with where you can get the book. That's pretty important. Tell us where you can get the book. And if I missed anything, Leslie, please go ahead and comment on anything you want to say to us.
No. So we wanted to make it super easy for everyone. If you go to our website, the name of my company is Order Out of Chaos. See the sign behind me? So funny to have it now. Our website is orderoochaos.com. If you go right to the site, you will find all the information about what we do at Order Out of Chaos, as well as obviously the book and everything else that's going on there. One-stop shopping. Just head there. You'll get all the information.
That's awesome. So let's not procrastinate. Let's go there right now and buy the book, How to Do It Now. How to buy the book right now? Go to orderoochaos.com and grab it. Thank you for being here, Leslie.
Thank you for having me. So much fun.
We'll see you again. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.